Okay, question for you. Were you ever actually taught how to study? I mean, really taught? For most of us, the answer is no. We kind of just figured it out as we went along. But what if the study methods we've all been using for years are actually the least effective ones? Well, a huge new scientific study might just have the answer, and we're going to break it all down.
Think about it. The last time you had a big exam, what did you do? I'm guessing it involved a lot of this, right? Grabbing your favorite highlighter, reading your notes over and over again until the words just start to blur. These are the classics.
I mean, these are the habits we've relied on for basically our entire lives, from middle school right up through college. And you know what? They feel productive. It feels like you're putting in the work, and we just trust that it's going to get the job done. But here is the big, disruptive question. What if those go-to techniques are all wrong? That's exactly what a new study wanted to find out. They looked at the study habits of over 3,400 university students, tracked what they actually did, and then compared it to their grades. And the results? Well, they're probably not what you're expecting. So first, let's get into the stuff that doesn't work. We're going to bust some of the biggest study myths out there, and we're going to do it with data. This is pretty eye-opening. All right, myth number one, and this is the big one. The idea that if you just read the material enough times, it'll eventually sink in. It just feels right, doesn't it? Like you're reinforcing the knowledge. But what does the science actually say? Okay, take a look at this chart. Each one of those dots is a student. The more they reread, the farther to the right they are on the chart. The higher their grade, the higher up they are. Now, look at that blue line. It's almost perfectly flat. The study found basically zero connection between rereading more and getting better grades. All that time spent just isn't paying off. Okay, myth number two. For anyone who owns a pack of multicolored highlighters, this one might hurt a little. We're all taught to highlight the important stuff, right? To make the key ideas jump off the page. It's got to be one of the most common study activities in the world. And yep, you guessed it, it's the exact same story. That trend line is flat as a pancake. So even though it feels incredibly productive to make your textbook look like a rainbow, the data is crystal clear. It has almost no link to doing better in the class. It's what's called a passive activity. Your brain isn't really doing the hard work. The researchers themselves didn't mince words. They called these low elaboration techniques, which is just a fancy way of saying they don't make you think deeply. The conclusion is simple. They just don't work very well. So if that's what not to do, what should we be doing? Okay, let's flip the script. Enough about what doesn't work. The good news is, the very same study showed us exactly which techniques do have a real impact. This is where we learn to study smarter, not just harder. The first real game changer is called retrieval practice. And the core idea is simple. Effective learning isn't about shoving information in your brain, it's about pulling it out. It's that mental effort of trying to remember something that actually builds and strengthens the memory. And here it is. This is the aha moment in the data. Remember those flat lines we saw before? Well, look at this one. It's clearly pointing up and to the right. The more students used retrieval practice, the higher their grades were. This is a real, powerful connection. So how do you actually do this? Well, it's easier than you think. It means quizzing yourself, making flashcards, try explaining a concept out loud to someone else, or even just to yourself. The key is to force your brain to produce the information, not just passively consume it. The second big category of what works is called high elaboration. That sounds a little academic, but all it really means is being an active learner. You're not just trying to memorize facts in a vacuum. You're connecting the dots, building a web of knowledge, and organizing it in a way that makes sense to you. And once again, the data tells the story. This chart looks at students who actively monitored their own comprehension, basically asking themselves, do I really get this? And just like with retrieval, we see that clear upward trend. The more students engaged in this deeper kind of thinking, the better they did. Putting this into practice is straightforward. Instead of just copying a definition, try to explain it in your own words. Create a little summary or a mind map. Ask yourself why and how questions constantly as you learn. This is what builds real, long-lasting understanding. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because it turns out that using these better techniques doesn't just get you a better grade, it actually changes how you feel about yourself as a learner. It builds confidence. This table really sums it up perfectly. The effective strategies, the ones that work, were also strongly linked to higher self-efficacy, which is your belief that you can succeed.
And a growth mindset, the belief that you can get smarter. And the ineffective techniques, they showed no link to either of those things.
And this is just so important. When you use strategies that actually work, you prove to yourself that your effort matters. You build confidence. You start to see that intelligence isn't some fixed thing you're born with. You're not just learning about a subject, you're learning how to be a better learner, period. And this all leads to a final and honestly a pretty shocking conclusion from this research. It points to a gigantic gap in our entire education system. 78%. Just let that number hang there for a second. 78% of what? That's how many students in this massive study said that no one ever explicitly taught them how to learn. We just expect them to do it, but we never give them the instruction manual. So they're left on their own. And naturally, they fall back on those easy but ineffective habits we just talked about. It's a huge paradox, isn't it? We expect people to spend decades of their lives learning, but we rarely take the time to teach them about the skill of learning itself. But that's what it is. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be taught and it can be improved. So we'll leave you with this. Now that you know the science, now that you know that some of the most common study habits just aren't effective, and that there are powerful, proven alternatives, what are you going to do differently? How will you learn?